When it comes to significantly extending human lifespan or achieving immortality, many people readily discuss the potential dangers of immortality, such as resource depletion, moral and ethical collapse, unchanging ideologies, power and knowledge stagnation, and societal development halting. They argue that immortality would be eternal suffering. If the wealthy first acquire the ability to stay young forever, life and death would no longer be equal for humanity. How terrifying that would be! Society would be turned upside down. Actually, I also think so. Our current understanding and social consensus are not ready for human immortality. But with these problems, will humans not move towards immortality? When a person's body begins to age, if there is a technology that can keep them young and vigorous, would they give up this opportunity because aging and death are natural? When a seriously ill, dying old person suddenly has a chance to regain health, would they give it up? When an opportunity for mortality appears before you with inevitable death and the possibility of immortality, what would you choose? What would others choose? What direction would society take? Society is developing, but it is not necessarily moving in a positive direction. Rather than development, it's more like change, just as the term evolution replaces progress in biology. If there is technology to reverse aging, the overwhelming social demand would quickly bring this technology to market, regardless of any societal harms it might cause. Even if the government bans it, this technology will still exist objectively. If the government bans it, it is directly depriving many patients of their right to life. Even if the government becomes a dictatorship to enforce the ban, it will quickly spread in the black market until the government can no longer control it, just like the current alcohol and tobacco market. The United States once tried to ban alcohol, resulting in the growth of the largest organized crime syndicates, and the prohibition had to be repealed. The government can only act in accordance with social demand and cannot defy it. Therefore, as long as it is scientifically possible for humans not to die inevitably, scientists will continue to invest in research due to strong market demand. Scientists, being human, also have a strong personal interest. Once breakthroughs occur, immortality technology will inevitably enter the market, regardless of the societal destruction it might cause. Through recent research and discussions with top scholars, I found that humanity might be on the brink of a breakthrough in immortality technology. In the last episode, we discussed that the mechanisms of aging in our bodies have been discovered. So, what are scientists doing next? And if immortality is truly achieved, how should we respond? In this video, I plan to conclude this topic. The learning outcome from the last video was the preliminary understanding of the main mechanisms of human aging. This mechanism involves irresistible external environmental factors, as well as internal factors aligned with our genes. The external factors are the inevitable damage the environment causes to cells and the limited survival resources in the environment. The internal factors are the cell's self-repair abilities controlled by genes and epigenetics. During adolescence, the repair mechanisms work at full capacity, but after the age of reproduction and raising offspring, which is around 40 years old, the repair proteins in the body begin to decrease or become ineffective. Repair proteins, which have dual functions of repairing cells and controlling genes, get lost due to excessive repair tasks and cannot return to their original positions to control gene expression. This leads to the disruption of the life circuits discussed in the last episode, causing genes to express randomly. At this time, the related repair proteins are somewhat functionally limited. It seems as though cells start to let the environment damage them without fully repairing themselves. This is how we start aging, our bodies weaken, and eventually, various diseases take us away. However, as we age, the genetic information contained in each of our cells remains unchanged. The genes that express repair proteins are still there and have not decreased. It's just that they seem to be turned off or turned down. So, scientists have started looking for ways to reactivate them. In the last episode, we discussed several methods for extending life, such as calorie restriction, exposure to appropriate low temperatures, and adequate exercise. Their principle is to put a certain amount of stress on the body, but the level of this stress should not harm the body. Calorie restriction signals to the body that food might be scarce in the current environment. Low temperatures indicate harsh climate conditions, and exercising beyond normal levels suggests potential environmental dangers. All these signals tell the body that it is not a suitable time for reproduction. Upon detecting these stresses, the body tends to favor survival mode over reproductive mode. Because the current conditions are not conducive to reproduction, the body enhances the individual's vitality, increasing the chances of survival. Because genes determine that he cannot die yet, his reproductive task is not complete. However, no one is willing to try these methods of starving, freezing, and exhausting oneself, eating only until 70% full, swimming, running, climbing. If not for the ability to post it on social media, hardly anyone would do it. Most people, including myself, would probably return to their regular eating and drinking habits after checking in online. To extend life for a few more years, should we really live our whole lives in discomfort? Note that these methods do not show results after a few attempts, but require decades of consistent effort to be effective. Even in calorie restriction experiments, participants at their best could only achieve a 12% reduction in caloric intake, whereas the theoretical target was 30%. But even with this, participants felt it was too tortuous. Moreover, the idea of enduring cold and hunger is to do so without harming the body. However, this threshold varies from person to person, and we can't precisely know if we've achieved our goal. Overeating, excessive exercise, or frostbite might not just hinder longevity but could directly cause death. So, what's the point? Since the principle is to create stress signals in the body, we need to understand how this information is generated internally. Once understood, we could directly introduce these signals into the body. Sinclair's team indeed found many methods. In the process of treating diabetes, several drugs can lower blood sugar. For instance, metformin reduces glucose production in the liver and promotes glucose absorption by muscles, achieving the goal of lowering blood sugar and being a relatively inexpensive drug to research. When scientists studied the drug properties using mice, they accidentally discovered that a group of normal mice in the control group, given low doses of metformin, had their overall lifespan extended by 6%. Later, they found that rapamycin, an immunosuppressant regionally expected to inhibit organ transplant rejection reactions, also extended the lifespan of yeast and mice. They also discovered similar effects with resveratrol. These molecules can simulate the stress signals brought by calorie restriction, cold exposure, and exercise in the body. This means we can indeed create these stress signals through medication without having to endure these physical stresses ourselves, allowing the body to favor survival mode, thus making the body healthier and longer lived. However, when studying this, regardless of the method, scientists only discovered a correlation between the method and the results on the surface. The effects on yeast and laboratory mice were not entirely effective, and each method had its limits. Immortality requires the unlimited repairability of cells, and we have not yet fully understood the underlying principles. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, abbreviated as NAD, easily combines with hydrogen ions to form NADH, and this reaction is reversible. NAD's role is to transfer hydrogen ions, or protons, within various cellular reactions, thereby supporting various metabolic processes, constructing new cells, and sending signals between organelles within the cell. It is also an essential raw material for mitochondria to convert food into energy. More importantly, NAD is the fuel for the activity of the various repair proteins we mentioned earlier. More NAD allows these repair proteins to complete their repair tasks more quickly, making it easier for them to return to their original positions. In the process of repairing damage and returning to their original roles, these repair proteins require hydrogen provided by NAD chemical reactions and various supportive functions of NAD. For instance, sirtuins remove acetyl groups from histons, which would otherwise cause improper gene expression. Sirtuins use NAD as a tool to remove these acetyl groups from DNA, so the amount of NAD determines the efficiency of cellular damage repair. NAD is essential for life. Without NAD, a person would die within seconds. When Sinclair's team began their research, people believed that NAD's function in cells was too crucial, as almost all cellular functions require NAD's help. Initially, scientists thought that they should not interfere with NAD in the human body. However, if left alone, humans would continue to follow the natural aging and dying process set by natural selection. The previously mentioned methods of increasing bodily stress or using drugs to simulate calorie restriction effectively stimulate the increase of NAD production within cells, thereby enhancing cellular metabolism and repair capabilities. Of course, many vital elements in the human body, such as adenosine triphosphate ATP and various vitamins, are essential for life. Without these elements, humans cannot survive. However, NAD differs significantly from these elements. The increase and decrease of other vital elements are determined by bodily functions and nutritional intake. This can be compared to a factory. Bodily functions are the production line's capacity, and nutritional intake is the supply of raw materials. The factory's goal is maximum output. However, the production of NAD in this factory is not only limited by production capacity and raw materials, but also controlled by a terrible inhibitory mechanism. This terrible inhibitor is not resources but signals like hunger, muscle fatigue, and cold. When sensed by the nervous system, these signals release factors that accelerate NAD production. When cells release signaling factors to attract immune cells to phagocytize themselves due to individual cell necrosis, this signaling factor is also received by the NAD factory in surrounding cells, signaling them to reduce NAD production. The logic behind this signal is that if uncontrolled environmental impacts increase the number of necrotic cells, the body may need to consume more energy to repair itself, potentially encroaching on the survival resources of future generations. As the immune system works to handle necrotic cells, the body's self-destruct system gradually reduces NAD production. This self-destructive system may also be influenced by age factors marked by methylation within cells. As we age, particularly after 40, the NAD levels in the body begin to decrease yearly. The reason here is that due to the influence of a few necrotic cells and the body's age markers, genes downregulate NAD production. This further restricts various NAD-related cellular functions. Limited cellular functions lead to increased damage, which in turn increases NAD consumption. The increased need for NAD's functions further restricts NAD availability, leading to more cellular damage and more necrotic cells, a vicious cycle. As mentioned earlier, without NAD, a person would die within seconds. Thus, the gradual reduction of NAD in cells is the process of cellular function gradually deteriorating. The loss of cellular function results in the inability to repair telomeres in various stem cells and the inability to normally recruit vitamin C to eliminate free radicals. Genes that should remain silent are activated by the accumulation of acetyl groups, and the original selective expression of genes becomes disordered. All of this is because NAD, the raw material for these life activities, is no longer sufficiently supplied, increasing our susceptibility to various diseases. This is the process of aging until death. NAD, or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is a small molecule, but the cell membrane prevents NAD from passing through. This means we cannot directly absorb external NAD for crisis use. It must be produced internally under the control of this terrible mechanism. All methods of extending life ultimately aim to make this mechanism synthesize NAD on its own. It seems that the human body deliberately monopolizes NAD control, preventing external interference in the aging process. The mechanism for increasing and decreasing NAD production is ruthless natural selection. This control over vitality makes us mere temporary carriers of genetic information. Most people, including myself, might be hearing about NAD for the first time. Those unaware might think it's some sudden miracle drug, but it is actually a recently revealed natural mechanism controlling life and death. So, science brings power, and knowledge makes humanity stronger. But knowing this knowledge also means understanding nature's control over life and death. Is this a good or bad thing? The scientific knowledge in these 3 episodes comes from David Sinclair's book and discussions with Dr. Chris, an old friend from high school and university, who is now pursuing a PhD in cancer research and has worked for several years at Sinclair's anti-aging lab at Harvard Medical School. This is a recent photo he sent with Sinclair. David Sinclair himself, a leading figure in the anti-aging field, was named one of the 100 most influential people by Time magazine in 2014. Now 52 years old, he maintains the healthiest lifestyle based on his research findings. He also consistently takes various NAD precursors, aiming to maximize NAD production by increasing reactants. From these photos, you can see that he doesn't look like a typical 52-year-old man. After all, Westerners generally appear older to us subjectively. He once revealed to a Fox News reporter that his bone age was measured at 30. However, these NAD precursors have not yet been proven absolutely effective in humans, and research on using NAD precursors as supplements is far from completing clinical trials. Their effectiveness and potential side effects are still unknown. Despite this, the mere possibility of extending life has already caused a market boom, with various related supplements being purchased in large quantities as health products. Of course, these supplements are expensive, and the market has only exploded among those with the financial means. These consumers naturally do not want the market to expand further and drive up prices, so ordinary people are still largely unaware of these products. As for what these precursors are, I won't mention them here to avoid any suspicion of promotion. It's also important to emphasize that these products are not recognized by domestic medical and health institutions, and producing or selling related products domestically is illegal. However, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, even spending a lot of money only buys the possibility of a longer life. But humanity's desire for immortality has begun to surge. Even the most cautious individuals are willing to take the risk of unknown side effects. The control of NAD still firmly lies within our genes. Our pills can only influence it to a limited extent, not fully control it. This influence might increase lifespan by about 20%, and that's only in mice. So-called immortality is still out of reach. We have discovered the switch for aging, but this switch is tightly locked by the body, preventing people from accessing it. Therefore, the rest remains speculative. Maybe one day human scientists will unlock this switch, allowing unlimited NAD infusion into the body. Controlling this switch, what happens next? Imagine you are the pillar of your family in the future. You, your wife, and your children live to be over 100 years old through medication and a healthy lifestyle. But then you reach the natural lifespan limit, and your family's money can only afford sell supplements and repair materials for one person to continue staying young. How do you choose? Who gets the life extension? At this point, love and family bonds may instantly shatter, as these emotions evolve to nurture the next generation. Now that you have the chance to seek immortality for yourself, it may turn human nature into animalistic behavior. Faced with such a choice, what would you do? Perhaps by then, the concept of family will have disappeared. Judging by the current marriage and divorce rates among the 90s generation, a century later, people might be entirely independent individuals. Children in the future might be entirely raised by society, or even more remotely produced from factory incubators without needing parents. We often say that the anthem of humanity is the anthem of courage, but what is the source of courage? It's the social recognition of inherent meaning in human life. When the body cannot last forever, people pursue so-called spiritual permanence, contributing to society to be remembered forever. Even if we can't achieve it, we genuinely admire such spirit. However, if humanity gains the chance for immortality, will the courage to contribute still exist? Would the desire for 1,000 years of youth make people prioritize themselves over everything else? In disasters, would anyone step forward, or would even this spirit of contribution be scorned? National identity and collectivism might completely die out. The spiritual and cultural values we now uphold might instantly collapse in the face of inequality in life and death. In the second season of Love, Death, and Robots, there is an episode where humanity has generally mastered immortality. However, if humanity continues to have newborns while being immortal, society's resources will become increasingly scarce. Therefore, the primary duty of police in such a society is to search for and kill illegally born children. In such a society, what is now seen as adorable hope becomes illegal and demonic, completely distorting social moral values. But even knowing these terrifying problems of immortality, if the opportunity were presented to you personally, what would you do? Honestly, I make these videos to see if there is any chance for myself to achieve immortality. I guess each of us hopes not for the immortality of humanity, but for the immortality of ourselves and our close ones, while strangers continue the normal cycle of life and death. Such a society would still be familiar and adaptable to us, but you are also a stranger to billions of people. If you don't achieve immortality, but some stranger does, how would you feel? Humanity will inevitably go through a terrifying period as a result. Some people always suggest achieving immortality by uploading consciousness to a digital world, similar to preserving genetic information. We could turn consciousness into information, preserving it beyond the physical body. However, this means reading one's thoughts and memories into digital signals, and then copying them to a computer or online. From a personal subjective perspective, this only creates software based on oneself, which has nothing to do with one's immortality. Ultimately, one's subjective experience is still death. There is a lack of continuity here. Consider replacing a brain's synapses one by one with diodes initially. Nothing changes, but gradually replacing each synapse until all are replaced might seem feasible, preserving subjective consciousness. But how long would this take? We need to take the first step towards immortality by extending physical life through medicine, at least until hibernation technology becomes widespread. When aging becomes irreversible, we could hibernate until the consciousness upload technology is truly realized, moving humanity step by step towards immortality. Beyond that, imagining immortality when the universe undergoes proton decay and heat death stretches the limits of modern imagination. The above content, including the previous 2 episodes, showcases current knowledge on anti-aging and extrapolates the resulting social evolution. Since individual human interests do not align with collective interests, the path to immortality may be unstoppable. Listing possibilities and preparing psychologically is essential. Nature has already done some preparatory work for our physical and mental preparedness. Through learning and observation, we know that humans do not have photographic memory because ideas and concepts also need to evolve within a human lifespan. Human consciousness gains knowledge and survival skills through observing and learning environmental correlations. Uncommon or formerly common but now rare phenomena and correlations are usually wrong, like the correlation between dropping out of college and becoming a billionaire. Similarly, the idea that true love can be attained solely through sincerity without financial stability is uncommon and likely to be forgotten by the brain. The brain retains common patterns because they are more likely to be correct, reflecting an organism's ability to adapt proactively to environmental changes through natural selection. Why are elderly people stubborn? Aging deteriorates their learning and cognitive abilities, making them cling to their existing beliefs. However, if a person remains young and energetic, the future still holds infinite possibilities, and they would keep up with the times. This is how consciousness counters genes and natural selection. Therefore, I believe the phenomenon of social cognitive rigidity due to immortality can be avoided. Society is neither progressing for the better nor the worse. It is merely changing. Nothing is unacceptable. Be psychologically prepared and respond positively to changes. No matter how the environment changes, accept it calmly and strive to adapt. Just as profit is the sole moral standard for capitalism, adaptation to the environment is the sole moral standard for life. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed our content, please subscribe to our channel for more exciting content.